The Nation of Islam is an organization based on African American political and religious ideas. It was founded by Wallace D. Fard, but later taken over by Elijah Muhammad on July 4, 1930, in Detroit, Michigan. The goal is to improve the spiritual, mental, social, and economic condition of African Americans.
Even after the Emancipation Proclamation, racism and hardship still existed within the United States, especially in the South. Lynching, riots, poor pay, and horrible jobs were common in southern states. Though racism was still present all over the United States, northern states had better work opportunities, especially in large cities where factories were present.
Elijah Muhammad moved with his family from Georgia to Detroit, Michigan in search of a better economic and social life in 1927. He became a part of the Universal Negro Improvement Association founded by Marcus Garvey, before leading the Nation of Islam. He led the Nation of Islam from 1934, when Wallace Ford disappeared, until 1975, when he passed away. He expressed his beliefs to others concerning love, peace, truth, and beauty. Elijah felt that Christianity was more practiced by white Americans who were racist and supported slavery. Because of this, he turned to Islam, believing he was more accepted and full of faith through Islam than Christianity.
Malcolm X grew up in Michigan and faced racism from a very young age. Members of the Ku Klux Klan burned down his family's house and murdered his father. He later was sent to jail for an armed robbery. While in jail, Malcolm X began educating himself by reading and having formal conversations with other inmates. He ended up converting to Islam during this time and recalls this as a life-changing experience that made him see the world in a different way.
Both Malcolm and Elijah believed in Islam and had experienced the effects of racism. They both wanted to make a change and share their beliefs, especially within the African American community. Elijah began to take notice in Malcolm X's talents and power. He then asked Malcolm to join him in speaking on behalf of the Nation of Islam. Malcolm soon became one of the leading speakers for the Nation of Islam.
When Malcolm X took his pilgrimage to Mecca, the Holy Land for the Muslim faith, his attitude and ideals changed drastically. After returning from his one-month trip in 1964, he spoke and presented himself in a different light than he had done previously. His beliefs that whites were exclusively evil and the idea of black separatism were gone. He reflected in his autobiography that the white man is not inherently evil, but America's racist society influenced him to act evilly, which was a change from his previous statements when he was a part of the Nation of Islam.
Malcolm X received extreme hate and conflict with the Nation of Islam after stepping out of the group to promote equality between all people as well as nonviolence. On February 16, 1965, his home was firebombed.
The Muslims claim I bombed my house. And if anybody can find where I bombed my house, they can put a rifle bullet through my head. It was my children and my own life and my wife's life that was at stake. You know what temperature was? It was about 15 or 20. I stood in my underwear, bare feet, in the middle of my driveway with a gun in my hand for 45 minutes, waiting for the police or waiting for the fire department to come. If I want to put on a show, I can find a better way than that to put it on. And if you attack me, that's one thing. I know what to do when you start attacking me. But when you attack sleeping babies while you are lower than a god, the only thing that I regret in all of this is that two black groups have to fight and kill each other off. I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization. It was not a criminal organization at the outstart. It was an organization that had the power, the spiritual power, to reform the criminal. And this is what you have to understand. As long as that strong spiritual power was in the movement, it gave the moral strength to the believer that would enable him to rise above all his negative tendencies. I know, because I went into the movement with more negative tendencies than anybody in the movement. And just faith in what I was taught what made it possible for me to stop doing anything that I was doing and everything that I was doing. And by this spiritual force, giving one the faith that enabled one to exercise the moral discipline, it became an organization that was to be respected as well as feared. I, for one, disassociate myself from the movement completely, and I dedicate myself to the organizing of black people into a group that are interested in doing things constructive, not for just one religious segment of the community, but for the entire black community.
5 days later, on February 21st, he was shot as he began speaking in the Abaddon Ballroom in New York. Talmadge Hayer, Norman 3X Butler, and Thomas 15X Johnson were convicted of first-degree murder in March 1966. The three men were all members of the Nation of Islam.
Today, the Nation of Islam is led by Louis Farrakhan, who joined in 1955. Through the Nation of Islam, he organized a meeting of 850,000 men, calling it Million Man March of October 16, 1995. Starting in 2013, Farrakhan began creating online sermons and messages in regards to current politics and pop culture.
In one of Kanye West's songs called All Day, he references the new leader by saying, "Just talked to Farrakhan, that's sensei, told him I've been on 10 since 10th grade." Snoop Dogg gave a speech at the annual Savior's Day convention in 2009. He thanked the Nation of Islam leaders and supporters for their continual ideologies and spreading peace.
Now y'all know I'm here representing the hip-hop community as well as the black community. And one thing in the hip-hop community, we very influential from what we say and what we do. And we don't really have a leader. We don't really have nobody who we can go to when we have a situation that's a problem. But me, as the leader of the hip-hop community, I always go to Minister Farrakhan because the minister has always been there for the hip-hop community. I want to tell y'all about a story, not to take too much time, but it was about 10 years ago when the rapper Notorious Big got killed in Los Angeles. I put a call out to Minister James. He called Minister Farrakhan, and we put today a gathering where all of the rappers came together, and we ended all of our beefs, and we all had peace, and it was love, and we've been living that way ever since then.
Today, the Nation of Islam still works to fight for equality and justice, specifically within the black community. They continue to speak out and voice their opinions on today's issues, including their support for the NFL player Colin Kaepernick, their respect for Muhammad Ali, and condolences for his passing, and opinions about the 2016 presidential election.